Oh, hi. I have been meaning to start this vlog forever and I have been procrastinating it, so I figured no time like when I need to leave in 5 minutes and be out the door and am not ready. I apologize for my appearance. It was Halloween today at school, so this was a thing that happened. It's the beginning of a long weekend here in the UAE, so we're going to do a long weekend reading vlog where I will be reading one book and one book only, which is this one, The Stand by Stephen King. Right now it is the 28th of October and this is the final book on my TBR, and I am this far into it. I figured to motivate myself to actually get through it by the end of October, a vlog would be the way to do that. I don't know if that's a stroke of brilliance or a stroke of the opposite of brilliance on my part. We're gonna be reading this weekend, and I have some things to say about it because I know it doesn't look like I'm that far into it, but I'm a good 300 pages into it and I have thoughts and feelings, but I'm running out the door to meet my friend. We're going to meet other friends at the beach, and I need to change, and I can't tell you my thoughts and feelings now, so I will tell you them later, possibly when I get back from the beach, and possibly will have read more. And now my battery light is flashing at me, so this is a clear sign that I need to go. Okay, talk to you later, bye. Hello. It's the next day. I am back from the beach again. I went to the beach last night after I talked to you, came back, fell asleep, woke up this morning, went to the beach. Now I'm back from the beach for the second time. I was considering just refilming a new intro clip for this vlog entirely because I'm sure that the one from last night is just chaos, but then there's really no getting around the chaos. Instead, I thought that I would just give you a tiny bit of context for why I am reading this, and also what my thoughts are so far. So I have never read from the works of Mr. Stephen King before, and I figured what a better time than October 2020. So I took a comprehensive overview of all of his greatest hits, and I really did try to think about, okay, out of all of these, which one am I as a reader most likely to enjoy? And I settled on this one. I enjoy post-apocalyptic settings, and I do enjoy pandemic fiction, and I have not read pandemic fiction since our lives became pandemic reality. Despite all of my efforts trying to pick a Stephen King that I was most likely to enjoy, it's not paying off so far. I feel like some of that may have to do with the fact that I have been reading this since October 1st and it is now October 29th. One thing that I think I have discovered about myself is that I know that I like reading post-apocalyptic stuff, but that post part of the post-apocalyptic is very, very important. I don't want to read about the apocalypse happening. I want to read about people surviving after the apocalypse has already happened. I think that's what we're building to, but oh my gosh, the exposition. The first 300 pages is basically just a cycle of watching a bunch of people dying. Aside from what I feel like is reading the same plot point over and over and over again, everyone always talks about Stephen King's writing style and Stephen King's storytelling, and so far, keep in mind that I'm stupid, but so far, what I want to equate this writing to is Nick Miller from New Girl.
His murder victim's already dead, so they obviously don't need a detective. I'm working on it.
His first attempt at writing a novel.
The night was inky hot. Into his office with a sense of purpose, place. Another word here, question. He had zombie legs that went on for miles. They were the kind of legs you could sink your teeth into. Pepperwood had 2 friends. One, if you count his hat.
which maybe in the show they were trying to parody it, and if so, they nailed it. I don't know, and maybe it's because I'm listening to the audiobook on double speed, so and the guy's tone of voice just sounds very like old-timey, talk really fast. The man was tall. The tall man walked towards me. I could not believe how tall this man was that was walking towards me. Like, I don't know. I will say that within the last 50 pages or so, like, the illness has ravaged the world and there are few survivors left, so we're in the survivor part now. Most recently I read this chapter where this guy, also, side note, this is gonna be so hard for me to edit, but side note, the characters, there's so many and they all seem like the same person to me except for two, and I could not tell you their names. There was one chapter that I just read where one of the characters is trying to get out of New York State, and he's going through the Lincoln Tunnel and he's like running into all of these dead bodies, and that part I was like, okay, we're into this. It's very close, it's very claustrophobic, and like the tensions were high and I was gripped. Also, that was the only chapter that I have read physically so far. So maybe that's a sign that I should read this physically more. Now that I've said that I think that I will enjoy this most physically, I'm going to pop my headphones in and listen to more of the audiobook because my apartment is atrocious. Oh, we're real close. Hi, it's Nighttime Caroline, who you normally don't see a whole lot of, but I felt like it was important that I update you because earlier I reached the end of part 1 or book 1 or something like that. So that feels like a milestone that I should share. Even though that I'm able to share that milestone, it's looking less and less likely that I actually will be able to finish it by the end of this long weekend. I would have to read over 500 pages each day. I mean, hey, you never know. I can have lofty goals, right? So now that we're at the end of book 1, I can feel myself not wanting to DNF it more and more. I'm not gonna say that I like it because I still am not at that point, but I am now intrigued enough to want to continue it. Characters at the end of book 1, all of these different characters who I couldn't tell the difference between finally like came together. At least some of them did. So I'm crossing my fingers that them coming together will help me be able to differentiate between them more and more, hopefully. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna do something that I don't normally do. I'm going to read at nighttime. I am not typically a nighttime reader, but I'm at page 470 and it would just feel really good to get to page 500. I'm a little apprehensive because I don't know that I want to be reading Stephen King like right before I go to bed, but so far this book hasn't done anything to like scare me, which I don't know that it's necessarily supposed to. And I'm like a wimp. I get scared. I'm like a scared little baby, but so far I haven't encountered that in this book. So fingers crossed that that continues as I try to read 30 pages before I fall asleep. It's much later the next day and I haven't really made enough progress to warrant an update, but I thought it was important that I give you the update that I am officially conceding this is not going to get finished by the end of this weekend. So it's no longer going to be a long weekend reading vlog, it's just going to be a however long it takes me to finish this reading vlog. I honestly couldn't even tell you what I did today. Oh Oh, I did run an errand and I was able to listen to more of this. We're into book 2 now, and the chapters that I've read so far in book 2 are quite a bit longer than the chapters in book 1, and the chapters in book 1 were already longer than the like 5 to 6 page chapters that I am used to reading. I'm in the middle of like a 60-page chapter right now, but we have finally encountered another woman character, thank God. I'm actually heading out the door right now to go meet a friend for dinner. So this is my one and only update for today, I guess, because I don't think I'm gonna be able to read anything after I get back from that. So I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye. Hello, it's the next day. I have just gotten back from running a bunch of errands, and it was all like boring stuff. I didn't get anything super exciting, except, one moment. So my original intent in running these errands was I needed more Nespresso like capsule pods. The whole point was to go to the Nespresso store, and see, this is why I can't ever run errands. I ended up getting my Nespresso pods. Right now, when I make a latte, I have like a handheld little press spinny milk frother thing, and it never quite works the way I want it to. So I did it. I bought a whole milk frother, which I have no business owning or buying, and this is why I can't run errands physically, because I just end up buying a bunch of stuff that I don't need. While I was running errands also, I was listening to the audiobook the entire time, and I've made more progress. So I thought we could make a latte, and then I would try and give you like a quick overview of my understanding of all of the characters, because I've realized that I've been vlogging this for how many days now, and I don't think I've done that good of a job at actually talking about the book itself.
Ooh!
All right, I'm back. I've made my latte, also written out my character map, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this. And now I'm going to attempt to succinctly describe what has happened so far in this book. So as far as plot goes, I really can just divide it into 2 separate parts. Part 1, pandemic happens, everyone dies. Part 2, which is the part that I'm in now, the survivors try to survive / try to find other survivors. Now I'm going to tell you about all of the characters that I can remember, and I'm going to try to describe them in as best detail as I can from what I remember. So we're gonna start out with this character named Larry, who is a washed up musician who is trying to make it like in LA. We hate him. He is the worst. He was originally traveling with a woman named Rita that he met in New York, but now he's no longer traveling with her. And recently he, in his travels, ran into this other woman named Nadine and this young boy named Joe. Nadine is a little cryptic, but we like her. And then Joe is a young boy who is this like guitar prodigy we just learned. He's very Lord of the Flies-esque. When we first meet him, he's like wearing nothing except his underwear and brandishing a knife. And he seems to trust Nadine. They are not related. They met during the post-apocalyptic stuff. So he's not like her son or anything, but he's been taken in by her. So that's one grouping of people. Next grouping of people, there is this young woman named Fran who is pregnant. She is also independent. She's just been going through a lot. We love her. She ended up traveling with this guy named Harold, who I think they both knew each other before the pandemic. I think they're from the same town. He's in love with Fran, and I get kind of creepy vibes from him, and he's just like meh. They have recently, at the very end of book 1, ran into this man named Stu. Now Stu, I think, is the same guy who during the apocalypse ended up in I don't know if it was on purpose or on accident, but ended up in this like quarantine center where it was set up by the government and everyone in there was dying because they were infected, but he didn't get infected. He ended up having to escape. He's also in love with Fran, I guess, and he's like a hate to love kind of type for me. That's another grouping of characters of who's traveling together right now. Then there's this guy named Nick, who is just, his backstory is about as tragic as you can get. He's deaf and mute. We're not going to talk about the representation because it's just terrible. I love being inside Nick's mind when those chapters occur. He has recently buddied up with this guy named Tom, who was, he found abandoned in Kansas, I think. I don't really know. Tom is neurodivergent, so it's hard for them to communicate because Nick can only communicate through writing and Tom can't read, but they make it work. And I think last time I left them, they ran into another guy who I don't remember the name of or even if we got their name, and this guy had a truck, and so I think they're all traveling together now. A lot of them are having dreams about this woman named Abigail, who I thought for a while was just like a dream woman, but I think she's an actual real life character and woman that exists outside of their dreams. She has very witchy vibes. She's alone in Nebraska. Like I said, she's haunting everyone's dreams. We're getting more, the part that I'm in right now, we're getting more of her backstory. We like her a lot. And she seems to want everyone to meet in Colorado, I guess, to escape from this ever-looming presence called the Dark Man. He's the worst. Long, drawn-out monologues for days. He has very much like cult leader vibes. He's also terrifying. He is also in everyone's dreams, but in like a less communicatory way. He kind of manifests himself differently in everyone's dreams, but he's always just this kind of like dark presence. Can't figure out if he's supernatural or not. He recently took this other guy who was like an outlaw under his wing. He seems to be wanting to like gather followers, I think. This guy that is like his first follower, sidekick kind of guy, was in prison when the whole pandemic thing occurred. So he was like living in squalor, locked in this prison, and the Dark Man kind of came and was his savior and got him out of the prison. I forget why he ended up in prison in the first place, but whatever it was, I just don't like him. And that's it. It kind of seems like the way that it's gonna go is all of these groupings of people are eventually going to meet together. However, I'm about right here, so I'm almost, well, I'm nearly halfway through, so I don't know if that's like the end goal, like the end goal is all of them meeting up together, or I don't know if they're going to meet up together sooner and then they're all going to try to defeat this Dark Man. I don't know if certain groups are going to get to Abigail first before the Dark Man gets to them. It's all kind of up in the air. So that's my interpretation of what's happening so far. If you couldn't follow along, don't worry, because I couldn't either. I have some stuff to do for school and just like my life, so I'm gonna pause reading right now, but I will update you later when I have read more. Hi, so would you believe me if I said it's the next day? Should I try and lie to you? Should I try and pull that off? Actually, I don't even think I can because my hair is different, so continuity who? We don't know her. It is not the next day. It's not even the next week or the next month. Has it been months? I actually think that the beginning clip of this vlog is me like telling you that it was Halloween that day at school, and if I tilt you in this direction, over there is very much not Halloween decor. So there's really no point in me trying to deceive you. It's the middle of December. When I started this, I was about halfway through the stand, and that was at the end of October, and it's now December 11th, and I can officially tell you that I have finished this book. Yes, it took me 2.5 months, a little under 2.5 months to read. I've been putting off wrapping this up or sitting down to film this end clip just because I don't know a good way to wrap something like this up. One, because of just its sheer size, and two, because it took me so long to read. At one point I was going to update that like character web map that you saw earlier in this vlog that I created, and I even went so far as to like get out the notebook, hit record, ripped a bunch of pages out that I had since used from initially making that character web, and then I ultimately just gave up because there's no point in me trying to tell you or summarize the entirety of this plot. And when I went to give it a star rating on Goodreads, I read the synopsis and it essentially tells you nothing about what happened. I think the easiest way for me to truly like efficiently and effectively wrap up my reading experience with this is that I'm going to break my feelings down into likes and dislikes. I think that I'm going to start with my likes because those should definitely take the least amount of time. So, things that I liked and appreciated about Stephen King's The Stand. The first one is gonna be really personal and it's gonna sound really, really weird. The parts that felt like a Western. I think that where I left off, there was this plague, people survived, the people that survived were trying to come together and find each other, and eventually within the course of the story, the survivors do come together and they find each other, and there's a part where they essentially try to build this settlement or town in Colorado, and the parts where they're like driving around on motorcycles that they've stolen with guns that they've looted from stores that have been abandoned, and like these vigilante types, you know, establishing a sheriff and establishing like a town council. For some reason, those were the parts that worked for me, and in fact, I would have really liked to have seen an entire book just based around that. And I think that's what I thought I was going to get from this. I thought it was gonna be survivalist fiction. That was just one very small and honestly insignificant part of the story in its entirety. I don't think that that's a part that a lot of people, when you ask them about The Stand, like, what do you remember about reading about it? Like, what was your favorite part of it? That part isn't a part that a lot of people are even going to mention or remember, but that just personally for me is what worked. And then the second positive thing or positive feeling that I have about this, I can't even say that it's something that I liked about it, but it is something that I appreciated about this book, and that is, I don't even know how to describe it. I guess it's genre, or what this book was or was attempting to do. When I went into this, I was expecting pandemic fiction, and when I didn't get that, I was expecting survivalist fiction, and then when I didn't really get that, I was trying to look at Stephen King's other greatest hits, and I was like, okay, is this horror? Was it thriller? Was it a mystery? It wasn't until I got to the very, very end and I tried to take a look at this objectively, and what this book is, and maybe this is common knowledge, but it wasn't to me, is it's, I think, a modern attempt at an epic, the epic struggle between good and evil. You have a character that is the very clear embodiment of evil, and then you have a character that is the very clear embodiment of good, and then every single other character is morally gray and falls in between the spectrum of clear good and clear evil. And I think that what Stephen King, one of the messages that he was trying to send with this is that where you fall on that spectrum between good and evil very much is arbitrary. It depends on your circumstances, and it depends on who you run into and if you run into them at the right time. People are not born into good or born into evil. It's very much the experiences that we have that make us so. So now I'm going to move on to the things that I disliked, and for time's sake and for objectivity's sake, I'm going to pare it down to just 2 things. First thing, I kind of wish that I would have just said from the beginning. I don't know why I didn't. When I went into this, I was aware of the problematic elements that King has in his writing, particularly his older classic books, but I guess I just wasn't fully aware. Any type of bigotry or hateful language that you can think of is pretty much rampant throughout this book. So racist language, homophobic language, transphobic language, ableist language, misogynistic language, sexist language. Point and click, it's in here. I can definitively say that that's just not something that I want to read as a reader. Particularly the way that King used it. All of the language that he used was used very callously and without thought. And I know that people will say that it was the time and that he was on drugs and X, Y, and Z. It's just not something that I found necessary, and it's not something that I want to consume as a reader. The second thing, I guess, is just the clear inconsistency in the structure. Again, I'm trying to stay objective, and I mean, I think it was this blurb that says America's greatest living novelist. I picked this up because I wanted to see what the heck was up with Stephen King, this author that everyone said was this brilliant, brilliant writer. And for all of the extreme praise, I didn't find it in this. This is an 1,000+ page book, so should we even be having a conversation about structure? I don't know. Why am I beating around the bush about this? I think it's because I don't know how to say it. For a plot that for the first, I would say like 3/4 of it was so methodical. Like, it was very much, there would be a character, he would have something happen to that character that would then come up in that character's development 100 pages later. And again, by the end of that character's arc, the lesson that that character was supposed to have taught the audience or was supposed to learn themselves would have been put out into the plot. Every single thing that happened to every single character, it was just so clear why it was happening, which isn't a bad thing in and of itself. But for a plot that was like that for the first 3/4 of it, the last quarter, it just kind of seemed like King gave up. Like, he got bored and he didn't know how he wanted to end it, so he kind of just wrapped things up really quickly. And listen, dude, I don't blame you. If I had already written 900 pages, I would want to wrap it up too. And of course he took, you know, 300, 400 more pages to do so. But in that final 300 or 400 pages, for something that had so much buildup, I did not find that in the resolution, and it seemed very, very hasty. So I hope that everything that I've said thus far has conveyed my feelings somewhat clearly. If not clearly, then strongly how I felt about this book. And if I have not, maybe my star rating will do so, which is a resounding 2 stars. Although I'm going to very promptly forget these characters and pretty much everything that happens in this, there are some moral dilemmas, I guess, and ethical things that this book made me think about, and I think are going to stick with me at least for a little while. So That's where the 2 stars comes from. Will I read from Stephen King again? I know that my answer should be no. Like, I think that it's a pretty clear indicator that you don't enjoy an author's writing after reading 1,300 pages of it. But I want to discover what it is people are talking about when they talk about his writing and how good it is, because I did not find it in here. So what I think I may be interested in if I do pick up King again, I might pick up some of his newer stuff, particularly his short stories. There's one in particular that I'm thinking of. I'll try to put a cover up here. I think it's called Elevation. Maybe his shorter form stuff will just be more of an indicator and I can get more glimpses at his writing, and I might find more enjoyment out of those than I did from this. So anyways, what was supposed to be a long weekend reading vlog turned into a 2.5 month or a month and a half long reading vlog. I can't even remember the timeline at this point. That's how long it took me to finish this. Nothing else, I hope this was semi-enjoyable to watch. Let me know if you have read any Stephen King, if you have read this. Have we had similar feelings or not similar feelings? If you have read Stephen King, what are your faves? What are your least faves? Do you have any recs for me? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day and I will see you again very soon. Goodbye.